The Crown is the story of Queen Elizabeth, how she rose to power, her family, and the struggles within the royal family. Hamilton is a musical retelling the story of Alexander Hamilton, one of the founding fathers of the United States. From him being an immigrant coming to this country, to him help leading the American Revolution, to creating the United States, and eventually his life ending so abruptly. Both The Crown and Hamilton are fictional retellings of real people, their real lives, their trials and tribulations, through the lens of different adaptations. But while watching these retellings and these performances, the question is asked, is historical fiction more relatable? When chronologically retelling someone's life from birth to death, there are many things that will be left out in the truth of how it is written, as one can never really tell the entirety of one's life unless they've experienced it. So as time goes on in this story of who these people are and this idolization, the truth slowly changes as each reflection goes on. As an example, George Washington, while being a very well-revered American hero for establishing this country, is also well known for being a horrible person to slaves and black people. This tapestry of truth is not one-sided or the other. He can be a hero and a villain at the same time, because no one is a solid of one or the other. The truth of who each person is solely based off of what they are exposed to about that person. So this truth can be reflected back upon and to see who that person truly is. When retelling someone's life into a fictional narrative, it tells a different perspective, usually from the writer, adapter, or from the audience. This tapestry of a narrative is given to those who experience it from the lens of their own experience, and with it, they each can add their own element of perspective into watching it. While watching Hamilton, the music is used in a more modernist setting with hip-hop and rap. Obviously, this style of music did not exist back in the 1700s. However, by using the hip-hop, rap, and dance aesthetics of the modern day, it allows for the audience to find a middle ground for historical context with a moral relatability of the modern day. The same can be said about The Crown. We did not experience the things that they did. We do see the reflection of emotion within each performance. From the frailty of Winston Churchill to the unsuredness of Queen Elizabeth herself, but the hesitancy of showing off that public persona of unsuredness, we can relate to that. Each of us have had moments where we are unsure of ourselves, but afraid to let that guard down. When adapting the life of a real person, the key is to humanize them to those experiencing their story. Probably the most famous example of this is William Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. Obviously, Shakespeare did not know Julius Caesar, nor was he even a thought when Julius Caesar was in power. He found out about a lot of Julius Caesar from reading many historical documents about him, reconstructing the narrative and changing things to make a thematical experience for those who did not actually understand the historical context of what Caesar represented. As the story goes on, you find beats and narratives that become more humanizing. We feel the betrayal of these characters. We feel the sadness of these characters, the emotional context, the decisions, and ultimately the conflicts and resolutions that preside within each of us through that humanizing experience that we all can share and relate to, regardless of time, place, and setting. The biggest critics of historical fiction are purists that believe the story itself should be just told. No fiction added. Nothing changed. Everything needs to be exactly as it really was. The problem with that is, fiction in itself is designed for one key element: to entertain, to be relatable, to be emotional. But reality, nonfiction, is designed to educate, is designed to teach, is designed to give you a thought pattern. It's very difficult to walk the line between thought pattern and entertainment at the same time. Hence why it is so hard to teach a lot of younger children. Lin-Manuel Miranda changed certain things while writing Hamilton from the real-life perspective of Alexander Hamilton, deliberately, so people would be so interested in the story and life of Alexander Hamilton they would do their own research, just as he did to make the story, regardless of whether or not audience members decide to research is irrelevant. But planting the seeds of who this person was, making them more relatable, making them more understandable, and making them less characters and more people, allows the audience to be sucked into the story and believe what they are seeing as a story that they can relate to. The most important thing is the story that is told. If we do not care about the story, why are we even seeing it? If we don't relate to the characters, why are we even watching it? If there's no interest, then there's no teaching. And if there's no teaching, then there's nothing to learn. Fiction is the exact same way, and historical fiction will take that same element, but allow you to see it from the narrative perspective of those who could have been through those same experiences than those in the modern day can understand. So, is historical fiction more relatable? I believe that historical fiction has a place in fiction as a whole. I also believe that ultimately each audience member has a responsibility to decide whether or not they want to do the research about an individual's life, the relatability, the facts, the understanding. It's not a matter of whether or not you confuse a fictional person with a real person. It's more to do with how the person's story is portrayed for years to come. We do not get to decide what we are remembered for. Our legacies are ours to make, and for those around us to remember. To quote the very last line in the Hamilton musical, but in the end, these aren't answers, they're hypotheticals.
Oh yes, I can heal you. Oh yes, I can raise you from the dead. Oh yes, I can open your blinded eyes. Oh yes, I can get you out of prison. Oh yes, I'll give you a home. Oh yes, I'll take you in when you're lonely. Oh yes, I'll make a heaven out of your hell. But I'm in a war against your buzzard God. I'm at war with your buzzard God.